Welcome to the program Global Weekly News, serial number 57. Comrades and friends, first we are going to see political prisoners in Egypt. There was a people's uprising in Tahrir Square in Cairo in Egypt called Arab Spring in 2011. People expected many changes. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is the president of Egypt since 2014. If anybody dissents against his rule, expresses alternative opinions, talks about basic rights and democracy, he or she will be immediately arrested and put in jail. Such is the oppression of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the president of Egypt. There are thousands of political prisoners in Egypt. Patrick George Jaki, a human rights activist and researcher, has a dual citizenship of Egypt and Italy. He wrote an article in 2019 on the issue faced by the minority Coptic Christians. For this, the court ordered his arrest. He was arrested in 2020 February. Jaki, who was studying in Italy, came to Egypt to meet his family. He was arrested then. He was pre-trial prisoner till 2021 December, when he could come out on bail. He could come out on bail only on 21st December. The court, in its judgment on 18th July 2023, gave an order for 3 years imprisonment in jail. Jaki's arrest was severely condemned. Violations of human rights and civil rights were also condemned. Last year, national dialogue was started with Egypt's civil society and intellectuals. Promise was given for release of many prisoners at that time. Contrary to the promise, Jaki and others were arrested and political prisoners faced many problems. Therefore, civil society and intellectuals boycotted the national dialogue. The officers of Egypt arrested Mohammed El Bakir many times on the charges of misuse of social media to release false news and joining a terrorist group. Fakir was arrested in 2021 and sentenced to 4 years imprisonment. Bakir, as a lawyer, represented Alaa Abdel Fattah, another human rights activist and a blogger. That is, one who uses social media very often is called a blogger. Alaa Abdel is one of the veteran political prisoners in Egypt. Human rights groups, social activists, international community again and again stressed the government to release all the political prisoners and to implement human rights and civil rights. On 19th July 2023, President of Egypt pardoned Patrick George Jaki, Mohammed El Fakir and some other political prisoners and released them. Comrades, we are going to see what's happening in Peru, a South American country. In 2022 presidential elections in Peru, the leftist Pedro Castillo won. Dina Boluarte won as vice president. The vice president colluded with the rightist forces to get Pedro Castillo arrested and ousted from president's post. Dina Boluarte is the de facto president now. For the last 7 months, people of Peru are protesting in the streets, demanding the release and reinstatement of Pedro Castillo as the president of Peru, early elections to the parliament, and framing a new constitution. On 19th July, for the third time, more than 30,000 people conducted a rally in the capital city, Lima, demanding Pedro's release. Workers, peasants, students, indigenous peoples organizations, left political parties took part in the rally. Due to government repression, more than 60 people were killed. The protesters demanded relief for the families of the martyrs. 24,000 police were deployed. Police used tear gas cells. 11 got injured and 6 got arrested. New wave of protests, which began on 19th July, will continue up to 28th July, Peru's Independence Day. Comrades and friends, now we are going to see how the Ukraine war is increasing hunger all over the world. Ukraine war and export of grain. As per United Nations report, globally 1 in 10 people suffer from hunger. 310 crore people do not have a healthy diet. Ukraine and Russia produce large scale of food grains. Ukraine and Russia export food and agricultural products to many countries. Due to Ukraine war and economic sanctions on Russia by the Western countries, food grain exports are greatly affected. There was 12% financial speculative investment in the food grain market 15 years before. Now, World Development Movement has reported that this speculative investment on the food market has increased to 60%. This has increased the hunger in the world. This has increased the cost of the food and increased the people are not able to afford. So their hunger is increasing. A few hours after Russian troops attacked Ukraine in February 2022, Russian and Ukraine officials signed a Black Sea grain export agreement in the presence of Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General, and Turkey President Erdogan in Istanbul, the capital of Turkey. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres lauded the agreement as a beacon of hope while the war was going on. As per this agreement, export of wheat, barley, maize, rapeseed oil, sunflower oil, nitrogen, potassic and phosphatic fertilizers from Russia and Ukraine through the ports in the Black Sea were ensured. Russia suspended Black Sea grain export agreement on 17th June of this year. Due to supply constraints in the world food market, hunger levels increased. Russia took the position of suspension of the agreement due to the increasing sanctions on Russia by United States, United Kingdom and European countries. To monitor the agreement, United Nations set up a joint coordination center with the staff from Russia, Ukraine, Turkey and United Nations. Russia has put forward 3 conditions to United Nations. Sanction of European Union on Russia's agricultural bank shall be removed. Export of ammonia fertilizer from Russia shall be allowed. World's longest ammonia pipeline project of Togliatti, Odisha shall be restarted. On 8th June 2023, Ukraine troops sabotaged a part of this pipeline in Kharkiv region. As per the agreement, Russia had with the United Nations in July 2022 possibility of entry of Russian ammonia in the world market arose. Economic sanctions on Russia are hurdles for import of machinery and ancillaries required for agriculture in Russia. Russian ships could not enter foreign ports due to sanctions. As a countermeasure to Western economic sanctions, Russia suspended the export of fertilizers and agricultural products. Second Russia-Africa Economic Humanitarian Forum is going to meet at the end of July. Russian President Putin in advance informed Cyril Ramaphosa, South African President, regarding the issue Russia facing in export of food and fertilizer to the African continent. The objective of Black Sea grain export agreement is to supply food and fertilizer to African countries. Many a time the agreement was on suspension and then restoration. Similarly, the recent suspension may end within a month. But this depends on significant relaxation of Western sanctions on Russia. To save the people from hunger, economic sanctions shall be withdrawn. As per United Nations data, Ukraine exports grains to 45 countries, 12% to Africa, 46% in Asia, and 40% to rich Western countries. Russia has objected to this since poor countries are getting less quantity of grains from Ukraine. Comrades, United Nations has come out with a new peace initiative. Let us look at it. On 28th July, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres released a new policy statement on global security. The policy statement has stated that all nuclear weapons shall be eliminated and extensive reforms in United Nations will be carried out. During the celebration of 75th anniversary of foundation of United Nations in 2020, it was decided to conduct UN Summit on Future in 2024. The new policy statement is a part of the preparations for the summit. The policy statement states that world is progressing in the direction of multipolar world and a new world order is emerging. Geostrategic tensions and competitions have increased the world military spending to an unprecedented levels. In 2022 alone, world military expenses have exceeded $2.24 trillion. That is 2.24 lakh crore dollars. And you know $1 is equal to 82 rupees. You multiply and you will get it in rupee terms. It's a huge amount. Due to armed conflicts going on in various parts of the world, Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations could not be achieved. At the dawn of the new millennium, United Nations set many goals. The goals are called Sustainable Development Goals. For example, by 2030, United Nations wants to eliminate hunger and poverty from the world. But that could not be achieved. Shared goals are there between nations. Antonio Guterres emphasized the need of cooperation among countries, various countries. United Nations has framed 12-point action plan after fixing 5 priority areas which are threats to global peace. There shall be more diplomacy than conflicts worldwide. Western countries want to prolong the Ukraine war, to isolate Russia. The culture of violence on human rights, women and minorities shall come to an end. The peacekeeping forces of United Nations had attacked people, especially women in Haiti and so many other countries. Western countries want to curtail the veto power of Russia and China in United Nations Security Council. United Nations will discuss on the inclusion of India or South Africa in Security Council as a permanent member. Comrades, fifth item we are going to see, European Union CELAC Summit. The world is becoming more and more multipolar. European Union of 27 countries and 33 countries of Latin American and Caribbean community are having different ideologies, are having different interests, but still this EU CELAC Summit is being held for the third time. A 27-member European Union and 33-member Community of Latin American and Caribbean States called CELAC, EU CELAC third summit was held in Brussels of Belgium on July 17 and 18. This summit is an example of world becoming more and more multipolar. In Europe, neo-fascist rightist forces are growing. The big corporate companies of Europe have been exploiting natural resources of Latin American countries. Many Latin American countries are liberated from the domination of European countries and left progressive forces are capturing power in Latin American countries. EU CELAC Summit was held on mutual respect. European Union want to prolong Ukraine war, but Latin American countries want to restore peace out there. EU CELAC summit was held after 8 years after the previous second summit in 2015. Parallel to EU CELAC summit, People's Summit of more than 100 organizations was also held at Brussels on July, the same date, 17 and 18. More than 1,000 delegates participated in this summit of the conference. Many sessions on making Latin America a peaceful region, strengthening the movement for withdrawal of sanctions on Cuba, ending colonialism and patriarchy were held at the summit. Important special speakers in People's Summit they are including Miguel Diaz-Canel, President of Cuba, Gustavo Petro, President of Colombia, Luis Arce, President of Bolivia, then Vice President from Venezuela, President of Belgium Workers' Party, and many others. People's Summit passed a resolution on withdrawal of Western sanctions on Latin American and Caribbean countries. Lastly, we are going to see the burning Manipur. Manipur is one of the northeast states of India. Its population is about 30 lakhs. BJP is ruling the state. Meitei ethnic people living in Impal Valley were promised tribal status by BJP at the time of elections. Kuki ethnic people living in the hills are afraid that their lands will be taken away by Meitei ethnic people. For the past 90 days, there are ethnic tensions and violence in Manipur. More than 150 were killed so far. Thousands of people were displaced. Numerous houses and prayer halls like churches, etc. were burned down. 2 Kuki women were paraded naked in the streets and one of them was raped by a mob on 4th May. A video of this came out only recently. A disgrace to humanity. State government is supporting the people indulging in violence. Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Chandrachud, has said that there is a blanket violation of the Constitution and human rights in Manipur. Supreme Court Chief Justice has demanded that the court be apprised of the steps taken to hold perpetrators of violence accountable. After 79 days after May 4 incident, Prime Minister Modi has told the media persons that he was full of pain and anger and promised that the law will act with its full might and firmness. He spoke for less than a minute. Condemnation is too little and too late also. Modi is not ready to respond to the demand of the opposition parties that he shall appear in the parliament and give a statement. The left and democratic forces are on struggles all over India and the inactivity of BJP governments both at center and in the state of Manipur in upholding people's unity and ending attacks on the Kuki ethnic tribal community. Thank you, comrades. We will meet next week. La Salam.